Imagine if in the darkness of night, you hear someone calling your name in a voice that sounds exactly like your own. Would you step outside? If yes, then listen to this story first, because after hearing it, your answer might change. This is Whisper from History, where forgotten voices rise again. Under the vast and silent sky of the American Southwest, where the red earth breathes, ancient secrets and time itself feels suspended there, lives a legend that stirs the soul and haunts the living, an ancient tale whispered in the wind, the tale of the Skinwalker. Long before settlers built fences and roads across this wide land, the Navajo people believed in a world where the boundary between the seen and the unseen was fragile, like thin ice over deep water. They spoke of spirits that moved in shadow of beings who were not fully human and not fully animal creatures that could walk between worlds, unseen and unstoppable. Among these was the Skinwalker, a being born from darkness and forbidden rites. A person who had given up their humanity to become something else entirely. They could take the shape of any creature, wolf, owl, coyote, even a friend or family member, to deceive and destroy. But how did this legend begin? How did a whisper in the wind turn into a story that still terrifies anyone who dares to listen? According to the oldest stories, the Skinwalker was once a healer, a medicine man or woman who used sacred knowledge for good. Then something changed, something broke. A shadow fell across the heart, and the healer chose a different path. They entered the world of forbidden magic, a power that required a terrible sacrifice. To gain the ability to change shape, they had to commit an unthinkable act, take an innocent life, and let the soul slip away forever. Only then could they wear another form like a second skin. And once the transformation was complete, there was no turning back. But what drove them to this darkness? Was it hunger for power, a thirst for revenge, or something far more unsettling? In the deep desert nights, families would sit around their fires and listen for strange sounds, the distant howl of a coyote, the flutter of wings, a scratching at the window. Sometimes these were just animals living their own lives, but other times the sounds felt wrong, crooked, twisted, like they belonged to something pretending to be alive. The Navajo believed that true skinwalkers could mimic voices to calling out in the tone of a loved one crying for help, or softly whispering a name, and once you heard that voice once, you looked toward the darkness, you were already too late. Yet the Skinwalker was not just a monster of fear, it was a symbol, a warning of what happens when balance is lost, when a person abandons their place in the world and steps into the abyss. In the early 1900s, settlers moved deeper into Navajo territory. They built ranches and homesteads hunting the land that was never theirs. They laughed at the stories, called them superstition, until they began disappearing. Cattle were found mutilated with strange precision, the bodies of livestock drained of blood, eyes missing, tongues removed, no tracks, no struggle, just silence and death. Locals told the ranchers not to go out after dark, to keep their doors locked and windows barred. They spoke of a creature that walked on two legs but moved like an animal, a shadow faster than the wind, a face that was almost human, almost. But the new arrivals did not listen. Not at first. They fired their rifles into the night, cursing the wind, blaming thieves and wild animals, but the deaths continued, and then they began to see footprints in the sand, footprints that changed shape mid-stride. One moment human, the next coyote. Fear began to settle in their bones like an unforgiving winter. One rancher swore he saw a figure outside his home at midnight. A shape crouched low just beyond the firelight. Its skin too loose, its movement too smooth. He raised his gun, but before he could shoot it, was gone, swallowed by the dark. But was he really alone out there in the empty night? Even today, those who live near the Four Corners region speak of strange sightings, tall gaunt figures running across roads on all fours. Human-like shapes perched on cliffs, staring down with glowing eyes. Stories too similar to ignore, too ancient to dismiss. And yet the deeper truth of the Skinwalker legend may lie not in the monster itself, but in the fear it reflects. The Navajos say that the Skinwalker is not born from evil alone, but from imbalance, from the violation of community harmony and sacred law. It is a reminder that power has a cost, that every choice ripples outward like water in a still pond. The Skinwalker is a wound that will not heal, a mirror showing what happens when a healer becomes a destroyer. But can a Skinwalker ever be stopped? Can a curse so deep, so stained by blood, ever be undone? Some say yes, but only by facing the darkness with courage and spirit. A Skinwalker cannot be killed by ordinary means. They move like smoke, bend like shadows. It takes a sacred weapon, a blessed ritual, and a heart unbroken by fear. There are stories of warriors who tracked Skinwalkers under moonlit skies, their chants echoing through the canyon walls, the air thick with the smell of sage and fire. They say, when the moment came when the Skinwalker stood revealed, stripped of its stolen skin, its eyes were full of regret, as if a part of the human they once were still lived inside, screaming for release. But such tales end, as all stories of shadows must, with a whisper, not a roar. The modern world may think itself free from the old ways, but the land remembers, the wind remembers, and late at night, when the desert grows cold and the stars burn brighter than fire, even the bravest souls feel the eyes of the unseen staring back. So the question remains, can a legend die if the land itself keeps breathing it into life? Or does the Skinwalker still walk among us, waiting, watching, wearing a face we trust, until the moment we realize it is already too late? Still think you'd follow that voice? Remember, a Skinwalker always wears the face of someone you trust. So next time you're called out in the dead of night, don't forget this story, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next secret of the night begins right here.